Hi, everybody. It's Kim West, the Sleep Lady. And on this episode of the Gentle Parenting Show, I'm so honored and happy to have a fellow author of children's books, Markita Staples Green. And I want to read her bio to you because I can't memorize all of this. And it's so amazing what she's doing and where she came from. So she's the author and the illustrator. So this is a pretty talented woman, let me tell you, of the best-selling picture book series. She's going to show us all the other books, the Curly Q book series. Her books feature a diverse set of characters as they interact with the world with topics that include sleep, self-empowerment, emotional development, and other important topics for young children. She is also a mom to a 2 and 4-year-old girls and incorporates gentle parenting in everyday life. She has a background in business and 10 plus years experience in the corporate world, all valuable experiences that she uses to drive her publishing and book consulting businesses. So welcome, Markita.
Thank you, Kim. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us, look, the story behind this is the book that I own.
Yeah,
I am not sleepy. Adorable. I tell you, when I was reading it, I just like went back in time to when my girls were this age. But I don't want to ruin the story. You tell everybody how it is that you came to writing this story and a little bit about your mission in all the books that you've written.
sure. So I came up with the idea to write my first children's book when my now oldest daughter, who's 4, when she was
Hmm.
about a year old. And that was about the age where she started to get into the routine of, okay, it's bedtime and we're going to read a book. And so she started to have preferences around which books were read to her. And
Hmm.
so, and I'll flash these up so I don't forget, but these are all the books. And the first book that I wrote is this book, What Should I Do Today? And so what I found in terms of her interests were that so she continues to be a very energetic, spirited child. And
Hmm.
so even as a baby, pretty short attention span, it needed to have bright colors. It needed to be short and to the point, entertaining. And then also characters of color. That was a big piece
Hmm.
of it too. And so I
Hmm.
quickly found that there were not a lot of books, particularly books for babies and particularly board books, like the hard books
Hmm.
for kids that were feature kids of color and were also had the language and the simplicity for a very young child.
Hmm.
And so I thought to myself, you know what? I'll just sort of write a book and I don't even think I'll publish it. I'll just do it. Maybe I'll hire an illustrator and we'll just kind of see how it goes. And so then at the time I'm pregnant with my second, they're about
Hmm.
2 years apart. And I worked at a company. We had a awesome maternity leave where we got 6 months off. And so I
Amazing.
decided as an outlet and also just during this time to kind of keep myself engaged in something, I would write this book. So as I'm writing it, I started to interact with an illustrator and I found myself saying, okay, this is exactly how I want the characters to look. Here's the color of the skin. Here's the color of the outfit. Here's the shape of the head. You know what? Let me just let me
Doodle
see if
it myself.
exactly. And so, oops, sorry, my headphone fell out here. And so I had an iPad, and the company I worked for, Adobe, they create software that is specifically
Hmm.
for digital art. And so
Hmm.
I had access to this software. I took a shot at it, and before I knew it, I was like, you know what, maybe I can do this, and sort of just
That's
taught
amazing.
myself how to draw. And so about it took about 6 months or so for that first book, and
Mhm.
um and so what should I do today? It really is just a group of kids asking that question. What should I do today? Should I blow
Mhm.
bubbles or should I, and it rhymes, and it's got the
Mhm.
colors and just all the things that I thought that my daughter would love. And so
Mhm.
that was book number 1. And I won't talk through all the books, but I'll talk about book number 2 because it was the reason that I
Mhm.
thought that it, kind of fit in great with what you do. The second book, I Am Not Sleepy. So by the way, I decided after I did that first book that I loved the process. I was like, I got to
Mhm.
do another one. And so
Mhm.
bedtime continues to be, I mean, it is a thing. It is a crazy situation in my house. And so it became a thing of like, I need to just find a way to laugh at this to not cry about it.
Mhm.
So, um, I Am Not Sleepy is basically the story of myself putting my daughter to bed every night.
Yep.
And it's always this battle of like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And me trying to figure out a way to make her want to do that. So let's
Right.
put up our toys. Okay, let's make a fun game out of it. Hey, let me help you brush your teeth. No, I'm gonna do it. Okay, well, you do it. And now she's happy brushing her teeth. So it kind of just goes through that whole dynamic
She
between
comes
mom and
around
kid. She
in
exactly,
each page,
exactly.
and she oftentimes thinks it's her idea, which is always a good trick in
Exactly.
parenting. Not that
It
it's really a trick, but
Oh yeah, I think they're onto it, but it definitely works a lot better when they buy into the fact that it's something that
Mhm.
they own. And
Yeah.
so this book was completely me. I didn't even realize, to be honest, at the time I was not familiar with this idea of gentle parenting, conscious parenting. And
Mhm.
I came to realize that it touches on a lot of those themes. And
Mhm.
so that kind of organically became a big part of my mission with my
Mhm.
books. And all of
Mhm.
them incorporate a lot of the principles of, let's respect children the way we want to be respected, and let's
Mhm.
find a way to come into their world and do the things that we want, but also
Mhm.
according to the way they want to do them. And so
Mhm.
that's a big
Mhm.
part of what I try to portray in my books.
Yeah, like even well, maybe you should show some pages and examples of how you do that, because it just made me smile when I was reading it, because I thought of my own kids.
Yeah, I laugh. To be honest, I've never laughed out loud so much while drawing, but literally as I was doing, and I'll start with this one. So this is a silly one.
Mhm.
Mom says, or mom's taking her to the bathtub. And she's like, I don't want to take a bath. And then she sees her duck and she's like, oh, my ducky, I love taking a bath with you. And mom is, I mean, I'm never
Right.
this dramatic, but it's for the
It's
fun.
fun.
um, no pajamas. And mom's got the pajamas that she knows she's gonna want to wear, and she sees them and she's like, oh, it's the rainbow pajama. Yeah, I want those. And
Mhm.
so, that's an example from this
This
book.
one, this
Yeah.
one's so cute,
Oh, no
right?
kisses.
She's like, "No kisses. Mama, come back one more kiss, please." Of course, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And
Mhm.
then, well, since you mentioned that one, and then in the end, I mean, obviously she goes to sleep in the end, but she's
Mhm.
oh, sorry. So this book, by the way, is one that my daughter got too. So you see it's a little
Uh-huh. Mhm.
but she's, basically like, oh, I need my doll. And by the time mom comes back, she's asleep. And
Yeah.
so, as what often happens, our kids are like, I don't want to go to sleep. I'll give another example. This is my latest book. I have so many feelings, and this one is more about just, kids have feelings. It's okay to have feelings, whether they're good, bad, uncomfortable. And so it's really just a little boy. His name is Gavin. All of the Curly Crew, by the way, is 6 kids. This is the back of them,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
all have their little personalities. But when Daddy wakes me up in the morning, I feel
Mhm.
sleepy.
Mhm.
And, I go down for breakfast when I'm hungry, pancakes, yummy.
Mhm.
And I'll kind of jump to, you know, my favorite toys make me happy until my little sister tries to play with them too. Then I feel angry. I am mean to her.
Right.
Mommy hugs her, but I get in trouble. Now I am upset and I feel jealous. And
Mm.
this one was really cool because my daughter did not know the word jealous. And then I read this book to her, and she
Mhm.
says it all the time now. She points that out. I feel jealous because you're, spending time with Autumn. So
Right.
just helping kids talk through those feelings and let them
It's
know it's okay.
so exactly. And it's so important, because I think that sometimes we can get into, we don't want our children to experience anything negative, right? And then, they're going to go out in the big bad world and experience something negative, right?
Exactly.
And it is important for us to put names to it. And then, like you talked about it, even in your book, what to do with those big feelings that can feel overwhelming.
Exactly. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and I've listened to some of your previous guests, and I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy hearing how, a lot of us talk about the generation that we grew up in, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this whole idea of exactly that, accepting those big emotions and being okay with
Mm-hmm.
them is a very new thing. It definitely was
Mm-hmm.
not an okay thing when I was younger. Like, you're
Yeah.
angry, what, you want to like react and actually show that you're angry? Not
Right.
okay, young lady. No, you need to
Oh, yeah.
sit there and get over it. And
Mm-hmm. Oh,
you
I was
know
sent to my room.
yeah, same.
Yeah.
And you better not slam the door when you get there.
Oh, yeah, no. And you can only come out when you have yourself together and
Yeah.
you're friendly and nice, and yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, I
I
mean,
know.
just the idea, we've come a long way. And I mean, my husband and I, we still, cracks of those things show up sometimes where we're like, are we
Oh,
okay
yeah.
with this? So she's just like, for
Mhm.
example, we think about with our daughter, like, it's easy to say, you cannot do certain things. You can't hit your
Right,
sister when you're angry. You can't,
right.
yell and scream or whatever when we're
Mhm,
in a place where we should be quiet. But
mhm.
coming up with that list of things that they can do is so much harder. And so we talk about that, like, okay, so are we okay with her kicking the couch? I mean, it's a couch, it's
Right,
soft. maybe
right.
maybe that's fine. Maybe she can scream
Mhm.
into a pillow, or
Pillow. Mhm,
or like, yeah. And so
mhm,
just kind of
mhm,
coming up with, not only it's okay to have those emotions, and then like on top of that, here's how we deal with them. um
mhm,
so it's
mhm.
been, the books have been just as much of a journal to me as a love letter to my kids, to kind
Oh,
of
I love that.
provide them these messages. But also for me, it's like I find myself talking through, like, because initially, I'll be honest, I had to have a friend, that one scene that I just showed about the kid being angry, the initial thing was he went to timeout. I didn't know that we weren't doing timeout anymore. Like, just to
Right.
be honest, because when I was a kid,
Well,
we didn't do timeout.
some people still are.
Some people still are, and no judgment, right? But
Right,
I
right,
didn't
right.
even know it was a contentious thing, which I have found, not to say contentious,
Mhm.
but I just thought it was a thing that people did.
Right.
And and she had to point
You
out.
didn't feel like you got the memo that there was another option.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And she's like, I don't know, that may not hit well with some people. And I'm like, oh, that's true. And let me now explore more about what it means to do time out with a kid, and why that may not be a
Right.
good thing for some kids. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
interesting to just continue on this journey and learn all this stuff.
And also for all of us as parents to find what aligns with our values. Sometimes we have to figure out what are our parenting values, right? Especially if we want to do things differently than our parents. And then figuring out, like, then what's the best match for my children? Because I have two girls like you. And I feel like when they were little, they had very different temperaments. I mean, they have different temperaments now, but not as different as it seemed when they were young, and I
Yeah.
had to parent differently.
Yep. I'm finding the same thing. My
Mhm.
oldest, she actually has some sensory, so
Mhm.
sensory, what is it? Sensory process,
Sensitivities.
or
Mhm.
sensory processing disorder, the SPD,
Mhm.
where she sees an occupational therapist, and she just has this thing where she just needs input. She needs,
Mhm.
sometimes she has to just run into something just to feel it, and
Yes.
she jumps off of
Yeah.
things. The youngest is also very energetic, but just a totally different temperament. And so I
Mhm.
have had to learn that, like, for the older one, big hugs, just big tight
Mhm.
hugs to kind of calm her
Mhm.
down. Like, that's what she needs. The
Mhm.
younger one is like, get off me, I want to have
Right.
this tantrum by myself.
Right.
Like, don't,
Right.
I will let you know when I need you. So yeah,
Right.
that's interesting.
Well, and two, your younger one is 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So who knows whether it will change in the sense of, now I need to talk about it. I need to do some processing with my feelings, because when they're younger, it really is just about kind of bringing down the that primal brain, that,
Exactly.
and calming them down. They can't really talk about their feelings as well yet,
Yeah,
but yeah.
exactly. No, you're
Mhm.
right. That's I
Uh-huh.
mean, and again, it's so fun just to watch it. I mean, in the moment, it's like
Not
every night at
fun.
bedtime. I mean, literally bedtime is just like, oh my goodness, how is it gonna go tonight? But those little peaks of their personality, it's like really
Yeah.
interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, you may, by the way, just to give you a little sleep tip with your older one with who has SPD, which lots of kids do, and I'm so glad that you figured that out and got her treatment. Because if I even look in the over the years that I've been practicing, which is 29 years, nobody was talking about that. I remember going and researching and talking to a relative who was an OT, like, what's the sensory? And they called it sensory integration then, and I thought there's something here for me, because that makes sense. Because right, it's going to sleep is another way that we self-regulate, and sensory processing is all about how we take in the world and process it to self-regulate.
Yes.
So when you have a child that needs a lot of input, you could even, maybe your OTs even told you this. I love the hot dog or the sandwich exercise before bedtime because it is input. So you pretend. And if you don't eat hot dogs or you have a thing against hot dogs, make it a turkey sandwich or whatever you like. So for this example, you lay on your bed on your tummy and pretend you're a hot dog, and then mommy is going to put condiments on you, and so, or daddy, whoever is doing it. And so you pick three condiments. And so let's say the first one is ketchup, and you do like a little chopping. Don't chop the head, like this down the back and the bum and down the legs. Now, if at any point they're laughing because they're tickled, then you're doing it too lightly. Yet you shouldn't be hurting them, right? So it's sort of that like kind of sound, and then that's the ketchup. Now we're going to put on some mustard, and then it's more like a scratchy, deep massage, like like that. You can do that on the scalp. That feels great. If you're at a scalp massage, it feels awesome. And you go all the way down the body, and then maybe you're going to do onions, and then that one's more of a squeezy massage, and go all the way down the body. Again, that one you can do on your head. And then you're saying, now mommy's going to put the top roll on the hot dog, not over their face, of course, and press down so all the ketchup, mustard, and onions squish out the side. And you press down where the big joints are, like the shoulders, the hips, the knees. And then I swear their eyes start rolling back into their head. It's big,
Wow.
especially for your daughter who seeks that input, right? It's really great exercise. And then maybe you could, whatever, give her a little kiss. And I don't know if you want to do stories before or after that. And parents, if you're listening, I'm not talking about something that's like 15 minutes. I'm talking about like under 5 minutes. And you only do hot dog once, right? You don't get caught up in like, let's do another
Yeah.
sandwich. We'll do that tomorrow.
Oh, exactly. That'll definitely be my daughter. I love that. I've never
Yeah.
heard of it.
Yeah.
I
It
want to
comes
try
from
some.
it comes from the sensory processing field. I think it was Carol Kranowitz who first I first read about it. So,
Wow.
so tell me, Marquita, a little bit more about like your mission with all of these books. I'm sure you're thinking about where am I going with this? What am I going to do? And how can I, of course, get these books in as many homes as possible?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you one story that has, it's something that I think about whenever I'm like, this is why I'm doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was earlier in the author journey, and I've been doing this for about 2 years, so still fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of my first events, and I had two books, and there was a lady that came over to my table. She was interested in buying a book for her granddaughter, and so her
Mm-hmm.
daughter was also there, who was mom
Mm-hmm.
to her granddaughter. And she's like, hey, which one of these books do you think, your daughter would like? And mom is like, well, I mean, she's only two. She can't read. So why would we even get this? And
Mm-hmm.
that is exactly like
Mm-hmm.
in grandma did buy a book, thankfully, and I'm sure they continue to read it. But that's exactly why I do what I do. I have heard a lot of misconceptions. And by the way, these are people of color. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's when it really speaks to me. But I have heard, this type of conversation where, people don't even have books at all for young
Yeah.
children. And,
Mm-hmm.
they're not being read to as babies because the benefits aren't really understood. And I mean, even I think for us, like, I don't remember when I was a baby, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that the idea of like baby books is
Mm-hmm.
still relatively new to a lot of people in general. And
Mm-hmm.
so just this whole idea of, I forget what the statistics are, but they talk about
Mm-hmm.
how, the more that a kid is exposed to new books before the age of
Mm-hmm.
6, like how much that affects their
Mm-hmm.
literacy moving forward. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, when I think about people of color in general and just where we are in terms of literacy and,
Mm-hmm.
as a community and wealth generation and just all those things, I think it very
Mm-hmm.
much starts with literacy, that being a big piece of it. And then
Mm-hmm.
also all of the things that my books talk about. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
being able to talk about our feelings and being able to recognize that children are just little people, and let's,
Mm-hmm.
try to help raise them up and give them the nurturing environment that they need. So that's one big piece of it. And another piece that kind of comes along with it is representation. Again,
Mm-hmm.
the statistic is something like, I don't know, 5% of picture
Wow.
books feature characters of color. I mean, it's maybe like 10%, but it's something
Right.
very low.
Small. Mm-hmm.
And, when it just is a thing, when
Right.
children can relate to the characters,
Right.
they are just more interested. Like,
Yeah.
I remember
Makes
reading
sense.
Babysitter's Club, that was the thing when
Mm-hmm.
I was a kid, and there was
Mm-hmm.
one black
Mm-hmm.
babysitter, Jessica, and
Mm-hmm.
like she was the one. I'm like, oh my
That was
goodness,
it.
but even just to have one, it was just
Right.
like awesome. Like, I can relate to this
Right.
now. So just being able
Right.
to add my books to that landscape. And
Yeah.
fortunately, there are more and more books like coming out and more content in general, television shows, all that
Yes.
stuff. And
Yeah.
so it's amazing to see. So that's a
Well,
big part of what I'm
there
doing.
can't sounds like there can't be enough. If it's
Can't be
less than
enough.
5%, we have like a long, hill to climb.
We
Wow,
do.
that is amazing. I mean, I'm also, this is we're so like-minded in this way that I'm a big, big believer in reading picture books to children. There is so many fascinating studies about how you should even be reading to your kids beyond when they can read themselves. And there's fewer and fewer parents doing that. They're like, oh, well, they'll just read whatever their Harry Potter novel or look at something on the iPad. But they even have interesting studies about how it should be a picture book, how it helps with brain development and imagination, creativity, just seeing the picture. I mean, with my daughters and I, we loved looking at the pictures and like, oh, look at that cute thing in the corner. And you couldn't even tell, oh, there's a little mouse over there. Like really integrating the story into life too.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
saw a quote, it was an article in the New York Times that said something like, while you're reading one story through words, your
Hmm.
child is reading another story through pictures, or something like that, when you are
Oh,
reading a
like
book.
that.
And
Yeah.
it's exactly that. I mean, kids, before
Hmm.
they can read, and even after they can read, like
Hmm.
being able to just kind of take in that
Hmm.
visual piece of it,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
there's just so much more there, and that's
Mhm.
so important for them, like you said, for their creativity, imagination, and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of great, real science about it. One of my, I don't know if I've talked about this in another episode, but one of my colleagues told me about this psychologist in Hawaii that was helping families years ago when they had a big, I think it was a hurricane. Lots of people died, and she ended up following these families, initially working with them with trauma, and then with other studies that she was doing, and one of the findings she had that she wasn't expecting, she wasn't talking about reading or storybooks, is she said, "What was one of the most meaningful experiences in your childhood?" And like the vast majority said either having a story told to them or read to them. And I was so blown away by that. I remember I immediately called up my daughters who are in their 20s and I said, "What do you think about that?" And they were like, "Absolutely, mom. Oh my gosh." And then they start going through all the memories of all the picture books. And so it was them that got me to say, start on YouTube channel reading picture books
Wow.
for other kids. So I'm just thinking, I want to have you on that channel. And why don't you read some of those books, your books, on my channel?
I would I would be thrilled. I would love it. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's funny, so there are channels like this now, and it's just a lot of the stuff that I'm learning as my kids get older,
Hmm.
because on one hand I'm like, would people really watch this stuff? But I'm like aware of a lot of channels actually like this, where
Hmm.
they get like their regular, or like people are on like Facebook lives doing readings,
Right.
and especially right now, with the
Right.
world just now opening
Yeah.
back up, I think that is an awesome idea. So
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
thrilled.
I just my other mission is like bring picture books back.
Yes.
We need
Yes,
like
right?
bumper stickers, Markita.
Oh my goodness. So that same New York Times article that I was talking about, and I'll just have to share it with you because now I'm bringing it again so you can
Yeah.
share it on here.
Yeah.
I think the name of the article is something like "Why More Adults Should Read Picture Books." It's something like that, and it's even saying
Oh.
that as adults, and some people
Yeah.
do graphic
Yeah.
novels and
Yeah.
things like that, and then there are like some kind of silly picture books for adults. But yeah,
Yeah.
just this idea, we kind of stop reading them, but
Mhm.
now I've discovered, oh my goodness, like Elephant and Piggy, they are my
Uh-huh.
favorite books. Like I just crack up laughing, and so does my
Elephant and
husband.
Piggy. I'll have to look at that
Oh
one.
my goodness. They are like Mo Willems is like, he's an amazing author and illustrator, and it's so fun for us to read the books, and we
Mhm.
have our kids
Mhm.
as an excuse to read these books, of course.
Right.
But
Oh,
yeah,
I don't know. That's my favorite section of the bookstore, the kids' books.
me too. Me too. And I love like a children's bookstore, and they just kind of make
Uh-huh.
it fun. It's
Yeah.
my it's my like project in my mind. You have these
Mm.
things that you're like, "Oh yeah,
Mhm.
when I have like all this time and the kids are older,
Mhm.
I'm going to like open up a bookstore." But,
Right.
maybe it'll happen. But yeah, I'm the same.
And also, your girls will probably give you ideas for future books as
So
they get older, right? And
it's
then
an
you can have the age range for the books go get older and older.
it's an interesting problem that I have right now,
Mhm.
because when I initially started writing these books, I planned to just keep them for young children, 0
Mhm.
to 6, like
Mhm.
pre-readers to early readers. And as my kids get older, that is exactly what's happening. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, now I'm getting into more advanced topics. Like, for example,
Mhm.
one of my future books that I want to write is
Mhm.
something along the lines of grown-ups sometimes have bad days, and just to communicate that
Mhm.
to my daughter, just to say,
Mhm.
sometimes mommy's upset. It's not your fault. Mommy will be okay. Sometimes mommy and daddy are upset with each other. It's okay.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but that gets into more of an older topic where maybe you don't necessarily, you can read it to a baby, but it's not as relatable. So that exact thing is
Right.
happening, and so I've always had this idea that the Curly Crew may grow up and they may
Mhm.
just continue
Mhm.
going, but then at the same time, I do want to continue. I have so many ideas for the younger kids too. So
Mm.
creatives.
Maybe they have some older siblings that decide to join.
Yes, that would be a good idea too.
Yeah, because I'm sure that if people of color are represented in under 5% in baby books, I'm sure it's true in all the picture books of the different age groups.
Oh
So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And even in adult books too. There was like another thing that I
Mhm.
read, like, about the New York Times bestsellers, and just it's a very low number that are
Right.
people of color. So yeah, I
And
mean,
low number of women. So, and then if
and women,
there's women of color, it's even probably smaller. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you're doing, Markita. Good for you. Congratulations.
Oh,
Honestly, I just love when, and now I know that there are dads who've done this, but so far it seems like I've mostly have had women on my show. I love when a mom figures out like a problem they're experiencing and they say, well, it's not out there. Well, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to invent it. I'm going to research it. And then you just go out and do it. And so
yeah. And
you're like a
I mean,
goddess.
I have a bias, but I just think that women, that's, we get it done. We just like, and I mean, the men
Uh-huh.
also offer support. Like, thank God for
Yeah.
my husband and like all the
Hmm.
stuff that he
Hmm.
does, even for
Hmm.
his, you know, the stability that brings to the family so that I
Hmm.
can be creative on this
Yeah.
side. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I just love it. Well, thank you, and please keep it up. And I look forward to having you on my book reading channel on YouTube.
I am excited. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Kim. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for her coming. And everybody who's listening to this episode and want to learn more about Markita, all the links to her Curly Q books and where to get them and reviewing, the summaries of all of them will be listed on sleeplady.com/podcast on this episode page. You'll also be able to follow her on social media and check out her website. Okay, thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so that you or download this episode and then you'll also hear about the next one coming up. Okay, thanks, Markita.
Thank you.